Close your eyes for a second, even though you're watching a video. Just try it for one moment. Now ask yourself one simple question. If nothing about my life changed from today onward, would I be okay with that? Some of you just felt a small knot in your stomach. That's normal. That knot is not a bad sign. It means part of you already knows the answer. If you're watching this, chances are you've lived a long life already. 60 years, 70, maybe more. You've buried people you loved. You've raised children who don't need you the way they used to. You've built things, a home, a career, a name for yourself. And now the building is mostly done. And somewhere in that stillness, a quiet question keeps knocking. What now? The Buddha had an answer to that question, and it might surprise you. He didn't say old age is the time to slow down and disappear quietly. He said it's the opposite. He said old age, when the noise of ambition finally goes quiet, is the ripest, richest season of the entire human life. It's the season the mind was built for. But there are 4 habits, small, sneaky, very human habits, that quietly eat up this precious time. They don't look dangerous, they look like ordinary thoughts, but they can turn your remaining years into years spent waiting, worrying, and hurting, instead of years spent living. Let's talk about them honestly, not to scare you, not to make you feel behind, just because you've earned the truth and you still have time to use it. Thing 1, needing to still matter. Let me tell you about a man I'll call Richard. For 30 years, Richard ran a small manufacturing business. Every decision in that company passed through him. Every employee, every supplier, every client, they all knew his name, and more importantly, they all needed his approval. Then he retired. The first few weeks felt like a vacation. Then the phone calls slowed down. Then they stopped. His son took over the family finances without asking him. His grandkids scroll their phones while he's mid-sentence at dinner. Nobody calls him for advice anymore, not because they stopped loving him, but because life simply moved on without needing his signature on it. And quietly, late at night, Richard feels something he'd never admit out loud. He feels invisible. So he starts doing something strange. He argues about small things at dinner that don't even matter to him. He gives opinions nobody asked for. He replays conversations in his head, thinking of the clever thing he should have said. Do you recognize any part of this? Maybe not exactly like Richard, but the feeling underneath it. In Buddhist teaching, there's a word for the quiet hunger to be seen, respected, and needed: mana. It's usually translated as pride, but that's too small a word for it. Mana is simply the mind's deep habit of measuring itself against others, needing proof that it still counts. For most of your life, that hunger served you well. It pushed you to work harder, to provide, to build something. But here's what the Buddha noticed. A mind that needs constant proof of its own importance is a mind that's always a little bit afraid. Afraid that without the title, without being asked, without the applause, there's nothing left underneath. But that fear is lying to you. There's an old teaching that goes, a deep lake doesn't need waves to prove it holds water. You don't need your children to follow your advice for your life to have mattered. You don't need to be consulted to have wisdom. Real dignity was never about being needed by others. It's about no longer needing them to tell you who you are. Here's a simple practice. The next time you feel that sting, being talked over, left out of a decision, unheard at the dinner table, don't react right away. Just breathe once, slowly, and ask yourself, right now, do I want to be heard, or do I want to be at peace? You'll be amazed how often peace wins once you actually ask the question instead of reacting on autopilot. Thing 2. Carrying old wounds. Now I want to ask you something a little harder. How many hours this past week did you spend thinking about something that hurt you years ago? A betrayal, a broken promise, something someone did that was genuinely, truly wrong. I once spoke with a woman named Grace, 67 years old. 20 years earlier, her business partner had cheated her out of a fair share of a company they built together. It was real. It was unfair. Nobody would blame her for being angry. But here's what I noticed as we talked. That story showed up in almost every conversation. Didn't matter what we started talking about. Recipes, grandchildren, the weather. Somehow, within 10 minutes, we'd circled back to that betrayal from 20 years ago. Her voice would change, sharper, younger, like she'd been pulled back through time to the exact moment it happened. I asked her gently, "Grace, on an average day, how much of your thinking time goes to this?" She paused for a long time. Then she said quietly, "Honestly, most of it." The Buddha called this dukkha, suffering, not just the big tragedies of life, but this smaller, grinding kind of suffering, a mind that keeps reliving pain long after the event itself is over. Here's the part nobody tells you plainly. The wound happened in the past, but the suffering is happening right now, today, in your body, in your chest, every single time your mind walks back down that same old road. This isn't a character flaw, it's just what an untrained mind does. It finds a groove of pain and keeps replaying it, because somewhere along the way, we learn to believe that staying angry is a form of protection, that letting go means what happened was okay. But the Buddha said something that quietly changes everything. Forgiveness was never a gift you give to the person who hurt you. It's a gift you give yourself. You're not letting them off the hook. You're taking the hook out of your own hand. There's a teaching in Buddhism that says holding on to resentment is like picking up a hot coal to throw at someone else. You're the one who gets burned first. Here's a simple practice. The next time an old wound resurfaces, a memory, a name, a sting from years ago, pause before you follow it down that familiar road. Take 3 slow breaths and say quietly to yourself, "That was then. I'm here now." That's not pretending it didn't happen. It's simply refusing to let something from years ago keep stealing your Tuesday afternoon. Thing 3. Drowning in worry. When was the last time you had a full night's sleep without your mind circling something you can't actually fix? The news, your children's choices, your grandchildren's future, your health or the health of someone you love, the state of the country, the state of the world. Many of you have carried a quiet, constant hum of worry for so long you don't even notice it anymore. It just feels like the normal background noise of being alive past 60. I want to gently challenge that idea. The Buddha taught something called anicca, impermanence. Everything changes, everything, all the time. Not one single thing in this universe, not your body, not the government, not the weather, not your children's opinions, has stayed exactly the same for even 2 seconds in a row. Here's what that means in real life. The world is going to keep changing whether you stay up worrying about it or not. Your grown children will make their own choices whether you lose sleep over it or not. Watching the news for 3 extra hours won't change tomorrow's headline. Worry feels like love. It feels like responsibility. But worry is not love, and worry is not action. It's simply the mind's refusal to accept that it isn't in control. Picture an old oak tree in the middle of a storm. The young, thin trees bend violently, and some of them snap. But the old tree, the one with roots going down 30 feet, sways but stays standing. It's not unaffected by the storm, it just isn't destroyed by it. That's what deep roots do. Here's a simple practice. Picture 2 circles, one inside the other. The outer circle is everything that worries you. The inner circle is everything you can actually do something about today. Most of what worries you lives in the outer circle, completely out of your hands. Put your energy only into the inner circle. Can you call your daughter and tell her you love her? That's inner circle. Can you take a short walk instead of watching another hour of news? Inner circle. Can you sit quietly for 5 minutes this morning? Inner circle. Everything else, let it be what it is. Not because you don't care, because you finally understand where your energy actually belongs. Thing 4. Waiting for someday. This last one is the most dangerous because it doesn't feel dangerous at all. It sounds completely reasonable. It sounds like, once things settle down, I'll slow down and focus on what really matters. Or, when the grandkids are a little older, I'll have more time for myself. Or the quietest, saddest version of all, I've made too many mistakes. It's probably too late for someone like me to change now. I once met a retired schoolteacher named Walter, 73 years old. Sharp mind, kind eyes, genuinely curious about living a more peaceful life. Near the end of our conversation, he said something that stuck with me. He said, "I always figured I'd get more spiritual and reflective eventually. I just assumed I'd wait until I was really old." He was 73. I looked at him and asked gently, "Walter, what exactly are you waiting for?" This habit, pushing off the inner life, the quiet life, the meaningful life, always to some future date, is the exact opposite of a quality the Buddha called appamada, diligence. Not rushing, not urgency in a stressful sense, just the simple refusal to sleep through the only life you'll ever get. The Buddha's very last words, spoken as he was dying, were these: "All things are impermanent. Work out your own path with diligence." Not someday, not once conditions are perfect, now. I want to be very clear about something. I'm not telling you this to make you feel behind or ashamed. I'm telling you this because it might be the most freeing thing you hear all week. 60, 70, 80, this isn't too late. This might be exactly the right time. The ambition has quieted. The competing and proving and striving, you've already seen where all of that leads. Your mind right now is more ready for peace than it has ever been in your entire life. There's an old story about a woman who came to a monastery at 80 years old and asked to be taught. The monks hesitated. She was so old. They wondered what the point would be. She simply said, "I have 80 years of living behind me. Isn't that enough material to work with?" They taught her, and by every account, she found a deep and lasting peace before she passed. You don't need to become a monk. You don't need a dramatic transformation overnight. You just need 5 minutes. Tomorrow morning, before the phone, before the news, before even your coffee, sit somewhere quiet. Close your eyes. Just feel your breath moving in and out. When your mind wanders, and it will, gently bring it back. No frustration, just return. That's the whole practice. And tonight, before you fall asleep, ask yourself one honest question. If today were my last day, could I say I was truly present for it? Not perfect, not without regret, just present. Let's come back to where we started. You've worked hard. You've raised families, weathered storms, buried people you loved, and kept walking anyway. Nobody who hasn't lived what you've lived gets to tell you it was easy. These 4 things we talked about today, needing to matter, replaying old wounds, drowning in worry, and waiting for someday, they're not flaws in your character. They're just old habits your mind picked up along the way to survive. They served a purpose once. They don't have to run the rest of your life. And here's the beautiful part. Letting go of these things isn't a loss. It's the opposite. When you stop needing to be important, you discover the quiet relief of simply being yourself. When you stop replaying old wounds, you get back all the energy that was trapped there, energy that belongs to right now. When you put down the weight of worry, life feels lighter than you thought possible at your age. And when you stop waiting for someday, you realize peace was never somewhere else, waiting for the right conditions. It was here the entire time. It's here right now, in this very ordinary moment, waiting patiently for you to notice it. In many traditions, elders aren't seen as people winding down. They're seen as the treasure of the whole community, because someone who has faced their whole life honestly and let go of what no longer serves them carries something rare, a calm, a depth, a quiet warmth that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. That's available to you, not someday, today. You have the rest of this day. You may have many more years after it. Please don't spend them on things that no longer deserve your attention. Come home to yourself. May you be well. May you be peaceful. May you be free.